Welcome to the Rising Laterally podcast. This is about connecting industries, technologies, histories, and psychologies to find intersections that can lead to personal and professional growth. Our conversations will be a blend of research, insights, and personal stories, and we hope by listening you become more fascinated about yourself and the world you live in. On behalf of Jay Baloo, this is Arjun Jay, and we hope you enjoy this episode. All right, welcome back to another episode of Rising Laterally. And once again, if you are a return listener and subscriber, we absolutely want to say thank you from the bottom of our heart. And if this is your first time tuning in, we want to welcome you to the family. So our guest today is someone who I've personally become close with over the last year. We've been talking to each other almost every other week, and he's played an expander role in my life by showing me how things can get done. This is a man whose soul emanates warmth and positivity, and he's one of the best networkers I've ever met in my life. He has a tremendous way of looking at life, and as the CEO of iBridge Capital, one of the premier mortgage agencies in Canada, he also has a unique way of running his company. On top of that, he doesn't settle. He co-hosts a podcast called Brainwash. He's a loving husband and father, and he fills his free time by reading books, making sure he's getting out in nature, and by spreading his love. We're glad to have him with us. I'm really grateful to know him and to be able to call him a brother. So please, let's welcome Pankaj Sharma to the Rising Laterally podcast.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that introduction, Arjun. That was amazing. That definitely made me blush.
There you go. And you're a good-looking guy, man. So let's get into it and start with your story, because it's one that needs to be shared. It's one that if there's a listener out there that's tuning into this, they're going to be able to gather inspiration, because your story, it's going to help people understand that they can accomplish things that seem to be out of this world, and that they can overcome some incredible hardships. So why don't we start with your journey and how you got from your beginnings to this current moment?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. So my story, I recently started kind of classifying my story into two parts. And it's so funny. I came across a post last year because it was my 7 years in Canada. And I saw a post when I posted when I moved from India. So my background is from India. I was born and raised in India for the first 27 years of my life, and I moved to Canada 8 years ago. So I always classify my story into two parts. Like part one was born and raised in India, the 28 years, and then the second part is the one which is continuing the last 8 years. So the story has been amazing, and I'm very, very grateful that I was able to live and experience life through a unique lens, which all of us have. I believe everybody has a unique lens to see the life, and how we see life. It kind of how it plays in your head. And it's, you must have heard the saying, what do you think you become and is around you. I'm a living example. And there were times in my life I was seeing something, and there were certain things I was going through, and now if I see something, there are certain things I go through. So I think your thought process kind of creates your reality. So in that story, when I was in India, I grew up in a very small city in India, and was part of a really small community. Grew up with like a joint family. We had more than 20 people living in a very small, like a tiny house. I grew up with my two sisters, the younger sisters, my father and my mother. We lived in basically one room, which was the living room and the kitchen and the washroom and everything. Bedroom was just one room. So I lived in that room for almost 25 years, the first 25 years of my life. And I never actually imagined that you could have something better in life for the first, I would say, 23, 24 years. And I had just a small dreams to just become get a job, a consistent job, and just get a consistent salary so that I can somehow contribute in my family. But in the very early part of my life, my father went through a severe like a depression. He was diagnosed by bipolar disorder, and he went through a lot of health issues in the first I would say 15 years or 17 years of my life, and he was basically in and out the hospital. So that didn't allow me to learn and to play and to learn like normal kids. I was like working labor jobs with my mom, kind of trying to help her with my dad's expenses, and just to kind of fill in his shoes in some small way. And at the same time I was going to school as well. So yeah, so I think in very early I learned how hard work is important, and how you can basically like get through everything through hard work. So something I learned since my childhood, and that took me to a journey where I never settled in, and I always wanted more. And there's, for some reason, I was really content with what I had, because I kind of looked back and I saw, oh, this is better than before. So I had the contentment, but I also had that urge to grow more, and I kept going further and pushing my boundaries, and started off with opening up like bank accounts in my first job, like door to door in India, in my city, and started opening those bank accounts. From there, learned how to trade stocks, and like kind of learned stocks street way. And and then from there I become self-employed, my own business, and started trading stocks on behalf of people. I got really successful, and that's where I tasted success for the first time, and a lot of like I made a lot of money, and actually like I kind of broke out of that poverty, or if you want to call like the lower middle class life my parents
Nice.
and we were living. So I was really kind of was able to take on 100% responsibility for my parents by the age like 22, 21. And then again, like I thought that's luck, and I kind of gave a lot of weight of all of this good things happening in my life to like luck, to God. Like I have been very religious, so I had a firm belief in like God. Being a Hindu, grew up in a country of almost a billion people who are worshiping God for everything. So I thought maybe God has this direct connection with me, because anything I desire, it just comes in front of me. And any dream I have, I end up kind of living that dream. And nobody around me, nothing is happening to any of them. So I always thought that there's something special I have going on.
Wow.
So yeah, so and yeah, that journey kind of kept evolving, and eventually I was really good in like learning new things always. So like kind of when internet came in existence in my life, which was around 2005 2006, I started learning internet, and the first thing I started learning was how to operate Yahoo Messenger, and like talk to girls, like obviously. So I was young, and I never had any girlfriend, and never had any exposure to fun. No clubbing, no drinking, like none of that stuff which regular youth or a child does, right? Like while we go through those teenage
They
years.
don't have that in the villages.
Yeah, like I won't say I was in a village, but I was in a very like a small confined society. And more than even the physicality around, it was the mindset, right? Like people had a very short, like small mindset. They didn't want it to grow outside of their comfort zone, and they were happy with what they had. And like my own uncle, like it's a real life story. My uncle, who I grew up with, and he died at 50, and he was like, he didn't ever had any like girlfriend, he never got married, and he was my uncle living right next door to me. And never enjoyed like those pleasures of life, and never traveled. Like I never traveled myself for like first 23 years. I never traveled in my life, never. I used to go to the next city to my aunt's house, and that was my vacation, right? So life was very different. Like you don't have exposure to the world, you don't know how much possibilities are there when you living in that mindset. So when I started working on my own, and I got exposed to internet, I kind of got explored to the whole world, and I was like, holy, this is like, what is this? Like the world is living in some other, like it looks like heaven, and why are we stuck here? So
Yeah.
that's where the curiosity kind of kept evolving. And eventually one day I came across my wife's profile, and to like my wife now, Shivani, her name is Shivani, and we just connected on one of those matrimonial sites. And I would say that was one of the like those the life changing moments when I came across her profile. I was like, again, my curiosity about who she is, how she represented, kind of took me to deeper exploration about her. And then we started talking. Long story short, through all those adversities of learning languages and like dealing with the cultural barriers, I ended up getting married to her in 2 years. And I think that time was one of the most defining times, because I got exposed to somebody who had a totally culturally different background. Language wise, she was speaking a different language. Like she had a different world which was exposed to me all of a sudden now. So I was soaking in, learning, and kind of exploring the new territories in my own mind.
And in what ways did you kind of come from different backgrounds, Pankaj?
So I grew up again like religiously, like we are same, like she's Hindu, I'm Hindu, but she was born and raised in Canada. I was born and raised in India. Like to begin with, like even I wasn't, English was my third language. I only like kind of read English as a subject in school. I never spoke English, right? So the first time when we started talking, like the first thing she asked me is like, "Hey, do you know? Do you have a BBM?" And I didn't know even knew what a BBM is. So the first thing I had to do was Google what is BBM, and then I figured out it is a BlackBerry, and that I didn't knew what a BlackBerry is, and then I found out it's a phone and there is a messenger. So long story short, like I kept going through those phases, learning. There was very small learnings like the language barrier. Like she would say something, I would understand something. I would try to say something, she would understand something different. Like culturally, like things you say in India to your girlfriend or your to be wife are different than things, right? Like there's a lot of stuff which it's fireworks, man. Like trust me, I went through a lot of learnings, a lot of patience, and we eventually got married. And I think that's where the second chapter started, when I actually decided to come to Canada. And in the beginning it was just a small like a 3-4 month trial period. I said, hey, I am not sure if I'm ever going to be as successful in Canada as I'm in India, because I made it through, man. Like there is nobody I know who has made it that far in my life, and I already have that. Yes, it's like up and down, because stock trading was not an easy stuff to do. Like I was, one day I was making money, another day I was losing money, because I
Yeah.
was teaching myself to. But still, like it was more of a comfortable thing for me to be in India with my family. So I still like took a leap of faith, and thought, okay, you know what, how would I know what's in store for me if I don't even show up? And that has been like a common, like I would say, a thread in my life, like showing up. And I believe that you won't know until you try, and to
Mm-hmm.
try you have to show up. And that's like my mantra, like show up and rest is going to be figured out. That's the most hardest part. So yeah, so I came to Canada, and right away I just fell in love with Canada. I think just everything about Canada, I was so embracing the culture, the food, the people, the small nuances. Like I didn't know how to get on streetcar, I didn't know how to like ask questions. Like, you know, I was like a lost guy in the lost city. And I would go in a bus and go till where it going, and then go come back, just to see like how much is the distance, what are the different cities. So I like food, I didn't know what to eat when I'm out, like how to even order coffee. So small things I kept learning and evolving. And I was enjoying that process. I think more than the fact that I was feeling less accomplished, I enjoyed that hardship, because for some reason I was having fun in it, learning
Mm.
something new, right?
Yeah.
I didn't actually knew these things at that time. I'm just able to kind of have clarity now. But at that time I was just in that moment. I'm like, okay, this is what it is.
In that moment, were you intimidated by all these changes
Yeah,
and things you
I
had to
was
kind of
very
adapt to?
intimidated. I was
Yeah, I
very
believe it.
intimidated. I actually, to get over my fear, I joined a call center, because I thought that I can't understand accents, right? So when somebody would talk to me, I can understand English, I can put together the meaning, but when they say it in a certain accent, I would get like intimidated. It will just go off of my head, and I would just
Especially
say
that
yes or
Canadian accent.
no, just with
Yeah,
a
right.
yes, right? So I joined a call center earlier to learn, get over that hurdle. So yeah, so the journey started there. And in the very early, like again, due to my who I am, my attitude of showing up, I kept exploring different things, and God just kept giving me, or universe kept giving me like different signs, and I kept following those signs. Now I call those signs people. I feel like there have been people in my life, and you just follow those people. Like everybody is giving you signals around you. You just have to have the ability to trust them, and you know, be with them, and just go with the flow. I think we think too much. So I did that, and slowly and steadily it took me to a job with one of the best banks in Canada, and I was very successful there. I had a little more than 2 year career there. Learned about Canadian financial industry, learned what's working, what's not working, what's the hard thing, and kind of I was trying to get into investments again, but I learned that more than investment, I like how heavily like credit is like leveraged in North America. So I was pretty fan. Like it was a big aha moment for me. I'm like, oh wow, so everybody loves money here. So everybody wants to borrow. It's like credit cards, like overdrafts, like credit lines, like boom, boom, here you go. Like, you know, raining money on you as long as your credit is good. So I'm like, okay, so let's see if I can explore more of financial, like a credit side of things. So I decided to be a mortgage specialist. And very early, I recognized that being a mortgage guy or being a real estate guy in the service industries, it's about problem solving. Like, what value are you creating with people? So, and I always kind of had this idea about this business or entrepreneurship or whatever you want to call that. It's a value system, so you have to create value, and a lot of times we are asking for value before even we create it. So I had that formula that, okay, give. I know Gary Vee says give, and then like ask. I think you don't even have to ask, you just have to give. Eventually there is nowhere to go but to get. It's like,
True.
so I used that to my advantage. I had pretty strong belief in it. So started from bank, and then same thing applied in the mortgage as an independent agent. And I realized with the bank, I was only able to solve problems to a certain degree because of bank's guidelines. So I wanted to be independent and solve more problems, go after the most complex problems. Very early, I learned it was the alternative mortgages was the most complex problems in mortgage space. So I picked up the most difficult problem, because in those days, I remember I heard Elon Musk quote that pick up the most difficult problem if you want to make the most money. So I'm like, okay, so this
Love
is
that.
the most difficult problem. I actually lived my life by quotes, by the way. Every time I used to hear a quote, I was like, oh, this guy's right. Like, let's do it, whatever he's saying. So since my childhood, every quotation I came across, I just took it for like word. I'm like, this is real. So I don't want to even disagree with it. So yeah, so I started solving a lot of complex alternative mortgage problems. And again, like, I feel like success is a byproduct of your activities and your energy. And I was able to, again, have a lot of success in it. And slowly and steadily, as I was growing in my career, I started meeting a lot of people who were in the personal growth space, and I started coming across a lot of, like, now I was starting to use internet a little bit more. So I came across Tony Robbins and all these people, and I started listening, okay, what are they talking about? Like, so everything I kind of initially heard, it really resonated with me. I'm like, oh, I already know what they're saying, so I really don't need to waste my time. I already know it, right? So I would say for the first year and a half of being a mortgage agent, I was in that space where whenever I used to come across something I already knew, I would just check out. I would not even give a time to kind of still listen to what they have to say.
Right.
So I think the real like switch turned for me when I got the news that I'm going to be a father, and that's where the real switch kind of turned for
I've
me.
heard that's
Because,
life changing.
yeah, it was life changing. I think that's when I realized, um, and I actually that there was a lot of things I had an improvement gap. But just because I was so blinded by good things in my life, I never even wanted to look at it. It was just like, hey, whatever is working, keep working on it. Whatever is not working, just put it on the side. So that was my principle. But then when my son was coming to our world, and I started recognizing, okay, even if I don't have to change, let's like unfold these blind spots. Like, what are those things where I'm like kind of slacking at this point? So one of the big thing came across was my health. I was always in my life, I was going through like waves. Like, overall, I'm a super healthy guy. Like, knock on wood, I've never been sick, and I think I have one of the best fucking immune system in the world. To be honest, it doesn't happen to me anything, right?
Dude,
But
you're
I
one of the
still
most
got
fit people I know, bro.
now, and you know what? I'm very blessed and grateful that this is very natural. I don't put much of an effort. But that was a point where I was like, you know what? More than the fact that I am not physically fit, the fact that I don't have a handle on my health means that I have something, a very big blind spot. Like, anything could happen to me one day, and I don't have any handle because I have no consistency with workouts. I have no idea of like diet and none of that stuff. So I think that's where like I started getting serious. And I started like kind of getting in and out of the gym. And there was one incident I quickly want to share. One time, my wife, so the car she was taking my son in, it was a winter day, and it was like minus 25. She was taking my son in to my mother-in-law's house, and the car she was taking, the key was in my pocket, and I was standing right next. So she started the car, she left. But then when she left, just after a few minutes, she realized the car doesn't have key. She freaked out. She turned off the car, thought that I she'll call me and I'll come and grab the key. In that moment, it was only like maybe a kilometer and a half distance from where she was. Took me almost 30 minutes. And I just like was so freaking out because she kept calling me. She's like, it's too cold and the car is not even warm, and he's like only 2 months old. And in that moment I realized, like, this is it. Like, this was like what I needed to see, that what if something was happening to him and I won't even be able to make it in time because I'm not in good shape. So I think
Wow.
that's where the switch turned, and I never looked back, honestly. Like, since that day today, like, I think I am constantly living in a state where I want to push myself every day, and there is no like limits, there is no goal now. It's like by and like, till my last breath, I really want to push myself physically. And again, in the 3 years, it has produced amazing results. I've been able to do marathon now. Like, I've been able to like run on a decent speed and build my endurance and stuff. So I think there are always things happening in our life for us. We don't see them. We see them that it's happening against us. But we have the ability to see those things to happening to us and learn something and take it for the rest of our lives. So that those are the moments, defining moments. And the long story short, yeah, when I went on health journey, all of a sudden this like idea of leadership started coming to my head, and what leadership is. I came across people like Robin Sharma, Tom Bellew. Like, I started learning more about like what leadership is, and I started noticing like a trend that leadership is not really about leading anyone. It's about leading yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I'm already leading myself, and I'm showing up for myself. Like, so why am I hesitating to be a leader? Because my idea of leadership was you have to manage people, but then I never like wanted to manage people. I never wanted to give orders. So I always hesitated from like a title like manager. And, I always wanted to be like friends with people. For me, I see everybody very equal. So then the whole idea started coming. And I think just 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, me and my partner decided to start iBridge Capital. And I think, again, just by showing up for myself and just pushing my limits, I started attracting a lot of like-minded people. And slowly and steadily, we started like bringing them on team. And again, like, things just kept happening organically. And long story short, now we have like amazing people in our team who like push each other to grow, to become a better human being. It's not only about mortgages. We believe strongly in people over number mantra. We think we strongly believe that the financial industry is very heavily number focused. It's all about numbers. But at the end of the day, numbers were discovered by humans, right? So I think humans should come before numbers. There is always a gray area. There is always like, you have to listen to the story, you have to go to the bottom. So I think that's where now we are thriving in financial space and be able to build a very distinguished brokerage in Canadian mortgage space. So
That's
long
an
story short,
incredible
like,
story. That's
That's
an
awesome.
awesome story.
Yeah.
I appreciate that
thank you.
because I mean, there's so much there, and it, like, even early on, the moment you find out about your father and his bipolar, I mean, you took on the responsibility that, hey, I have to, be the man of the house. I have to start to. You were being a problem solver back then. You may not have even realized it, and that's just kind of been in your DNA this entire time. I mean, that's an incredible mindset to have, and then for you to be able to pull out of the community that you were in, such a small-minded community that you talked about, to be able to get out of there regardless of what people were thinking about or what people said to you. They may have called you crazy for leaving a successful situation in India to go try something new in Canada. But now you can probably look back and say, look, I've shown success basically everywhere I've gone, and it's because of my mentality. It's because of the fact that I show up, and it's because of the fact that I have the ability to figure out where I was lacking and turn that into something positive. And I think that's an incredible tale, for anyone.
No, thank you very much. And I think just to add on to it, Arjun, one of the things we like when I was in those situations, when people did call me crazy, when people call me, they used to call me Sheikh Chili. So the word did not like the word means somebody who always shoots more than he can. So like, like, oh, you are just like shooting for the moon. You can't even shoot in like two feet from here, right? So I never actually like, it never bothered me. It actually made me happy internally. I'm like, oh, one day I'm gonna like, that's how I used to tell myself. I'm like, one day I'm gonna do it, and then you're gonna be like, oh, right? Because I don't know, I had this idea that if you try enough times, you can do it. And now I understand, like, I've read Law of Attraction, and that's why I was having so many breakthroughs when I started reading books. I was like, what? This is talking exactly how somehow this universe like designed me. And now that's the something which like really pushes me to do conscious brainwash, because I believe every human being has this in them. Like I didn't knew I had it. I kind of somehow used it, and now I'm learning, oh, you can even learn these things. It's not like you are born with it. You can learn these things too.
Yeah, before we get to your podcast though, just on your philosophy as a CEO, I mean, I think it's something that's unique. So I know you put people over numbers, but what are what are some of your tips around managing a team, around managing complex problems that occur on a day to day?
So when it comes to business, I believe I'm a very like a macro level guy. Like I look at problems and I feel like all the problems stem to the same cause, which is we are not able to understand or engage with the human being who the problem is from. So I feel like every problem you can solve as long as you have the ability to somehow address that person or that situation or whoever person is involved. So when I see problems, I try to go deep into the problem. Like where is this problem really coming from? Like for example, like just to give you an example of our business, like let's say a client is asking for a better rate and we are not able to provide that better rate, right? Sometimes like on a surface level, a mortgage agent might get caught in the notion that, oh, because I only have this much rate available, I can't do anything more than that, right? And we don't get into why the client wants to do ask for that. Why does it matter for them? Like what this 25 or $40 a month is going to do. Ask them, right? Address like what is their why. Maybe they are somebody who just feels happy. This is how they feel accomplished, right? Because some people like to negotiate. So if that's the case, ask them. And maybe they have a cash flow problem and that's what they need, right? And I feel like sometimes when you take time to know those things, to give somebody like time to express themselves, those problems can get solved itself. We just so stuck on the surface level trying to like do things which are out of our control, rather than we have to move inwards and do things which are in our control. I don't know if it
Oh
answers.
yeah, no, that's super helpful. You basically have to, get an understanding. It's your ability to show empathy. It's your ability to understand, what makes that person, what's the trigger for that person? Why are they even asking the question in the first place?
Yeah, like
And
being a CEO, like I get faced all the time. Like everybody's one of the challenges I felt was everybody is given the same level of education, training, mentorship, but not everybody comes out with the same results. And sometimes we tend to think, oh, you're gonna throw all of this like material onto 10 guys, and 10 guys are gonna come back with the same results. But that's not the case, because everybody's different. Like everybody's decoding of that information is happening on a different way. So it's very important to understand that person, and then like kind of customize what's going to work for them or what's not going to work for them. One of the successes I had with iBridge as a CEO is finding that niche, finding that something which really gets them excited. For example, like my agent might not be great at doing refinances. I will discover he likes engaging with clients who are buying house for the first time, so his niche is talking to first time home buyers. Somebody doesn't like first time home buyers because they think they ask too many questions, but they like business clients. So giving them time to understand who they are and what they like and how they want to do the storytelling, because at the end of the day, that's all we are doing. Sales guys are doing storytelling. So you just have to like get better at that storytelling.
yeah, it's a really interesting philosophy. I think there are a lot of different ways to produce great results in any business context. And I think a lot of managers have taken the tactic of putting everyone into a one size fits all box and saying there's one strategy, there's one path forward. Everyone needs to get with this specific program. But I like the fact that you've actually taken time to see people as individuals and see how they may be able to excel in their own individual niche. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And another thing which has helped me immensely in this leadership role is so if we do have to give people a standard like a material, that has to be standard to humans, which is give them ability to grow their mind, body, soul, because that exists in every human being. So that's where like the philosophy we have around our business is, rather than giving them the best tools like the gadgets, like the best, like, tech in front of them. Give them tools to upgrade themselves, like give them tools to, like, for example, we offer free boot camps to our team. So we want to give them like something which feeds their body, stay to help them stay healthy. We encourage like book reading, like, and we always share like podcasts with each other, and to feed their mind so that they're engaging themselves into like some useful content. We're always like sharing about how important meditation is, or like nature walks, like Arjun mentioned earlier, like we just did our hike. So we do hikes with team, and we go in nature on regular basis. Our meetings, like, we try to do in nature, so that we are able to give that standard procedure to everybody. Because I strongly believe if we feed enough to our these three areas of our life on daily basis or consistent basis, you can upgrade it anything you want, your life, your career, your relationship, anything. Because you are upgrading the operating system. So that's what we are giving standard to everybody. Hey, like, you want to join us, this is who we are, this is what we believe in. We don't care about your results, we don't care about how good of a mortgage agent you are. We really want you to be a great human being, and be the best version of yourself. And then mortgages will come, the business will follow.
For sure. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
It's like, if you can't work on yourself and get yourself better, how are you going to work on someone else's problems and get them better? It's
Yeah.
that mentality. But, one of the things is like, we wanted to make sure that, we addressed, helping you out as well. And so it's like, I know you might be thinking about this, but one thing that I was doing in terms of reading and preparing for this episode was I was understanding the dynamics of the Canadian mortgage and housing market. And one thing I'm noticing is that there was a survey that was put out, and it showed that 20% of consumers have suggested that they actually might switch their lending institution depending on whether their lender approved like mortgage relief measures because of the pandemic and how they dealt with those accommodations. So I want to put that out there because I know you're an independent broker and you're running your independent firm, and 70% of loans come from the largest 6 banks in Canada. But I want to make sure that you are putting yourself and your firm in a position to take advantage of these consumers who are thinking about switching their lenders. Have you thought about this, or have you heard about this?
Yeah, we have been hearing about this recently, and with the evolving mortgage space, we are very much positioned well through our agents. Again, we have done a lot of groundwork in the the content creation, the education part of business, where now our agents are sounding credible to their clients and the people who are engaging with them, right? So, and at the same time, they are also evolving with these new times, and not really trying to hide from the fact that there's a pandemic going. And like, for example, when the pandemic hit, like, one of the best things we noticed was our agents, rather than going back on the back foot, they were on the front foot, because they took it as a new challenge, right? Because when you are in a growth mindset, when you are in a more conscious state, you take challenges, and those are exciting for you. So we evolved ourselves. We were very less heavy on technology before COVID, and now we are heavy on the technology because we understand that there is a lot of automation we can do within our business model. So we were like very quick to evolve and adapt to new technology, and that allowed us to accelerate our efforts, which we were doing in engaging with clients by using more robust CRM and other strategies.
It sounds
So
like you're going to be the person that anyone who's listening or is thinking about moving to Canada, because every 4 years, every time there's an election in America, there's a cohort of people that are like, regardless of outcome, I want to move to Canada. So it sounds like, maybe you're the guy to get in touch with if they decide to move, because you not only have the tools and the technology and the team, but you have an incredible mindset around helping people actually accomplish what they're looking for.
no, we would love to help any of those Americans who are looking to move to Canada. And honestly, Arjun, I never talk about products. I never talk about mortgages, because I strongly believe if you are able to build that connection with the people, regardless of what product you have to offer, the product will like sell itself, right? So it could be mortgages today, it could be insurance tomorrow. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you are able to connect with your audience, and you are able to to build that empathetic and compassionate relationship with them. And then once you are able to do that, then everything else is just like a gravy, right? It's going to happen. Like, honestly, I have never advertised about mortgages. I have never reached out, never did cold calling. It's just a word of mouth. It's just you show up every single time with the same integrity, with the same level of professionalism, and you treat everybody fair, and you put everybody before yourself in that situation, right? And if you follow that formula, anybody can be successful. Any sales guy listening out right now, like if you do that on consistent enough basis, we can achieve any results. And that's how I was able to do it all throughout my sales life. I think sales is a very like loosely, it's very vaguely defined. Sales, when I think about sales, it's like knocking the door and like somebody showing up and closing the door on you. That's the picture I get for sales. But I feel like sales is not that. Sales is like offering something without an intent to somebody to take it. It's like just believing in it. Hey, this is the best thing for you, and I believe in it, and this is why I believe in it. That's it, and that's our job done. And if we focus on that part only and continue getting better at that part, that's it. And eventually people are gonna like start buying you. Eventually people are gonna start believing you because you believe in what you're doing. I think that's where it helped us to be a little different.
Yeah, I really like that in the actual mission statement of iBridge Capital, you have 2R agents, empower them with support, meaningful tools, and mindfulness. I very rarely ever see mindfulness baked into someone's mission statement. So it's really powerful that it's not only a message that you're sharing with us in the form of a podcast, but it seems like a tenet that plays out in your company every day. And I think, to your point, promoting mindfulness probably makes agents and everyone in your orbit have a deeper level of faith in the value add they're bringing to their clients, which benefits everybody. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So speaking of all that, let's get into your podcast, Conscious Brainwash. You've been doing it for about a year or so. I think we can tell, why you started it, but, tell us a little bit more about the podcast. Tell us a little bit more about the types of guests that you're able to attract, and tell us about how this has enhanced your path towards, just even higher alertness and higher awareness and maybe a little bit more clarity.
Mm-hmm. Conscious Brainwash actually originated. This idea came in a year, just little more than a year. I was in Portugal with my co-host Sean, and we were visiting my wife and my son. They were there spending a month. So at the end of the trip, we were visiting there. Just to rewind a little back, all through my life, anything I learned new, I was always very eager to share it with other people. Like, this was another thing I had in me, like innately. Like, I never wanted to keep those secrets to myself. And it was so funny when I used to share those things with people. Like, people ridiculed me always because they were like, yeah, right. It doesn't work like that, right? They call me delusional a lot of time. So, but it never really like pushed me back. And I think I was doing that all my life. But then when I started actually exploring the world of personal growth and self-exploration, my mind just blew off. And I was like telling everybody, like, I'm like, yo guys, this is it. Like, you are unhappy, do this shit. It's going to be fixed. And again, like, I was being a little ridiculous. Like, people like, oh yeah, you just found out about it. I already know it, right? So I was doing that around me. And what started happening over time, even if I said to 10 people and 9 ridiculed or rejected, one of them actually stuck to it. And that one guy kept doing those things over and over. And over the last like 2 to 3 years, there was like almost more than a dozen people around me who, just by picking up things which I was sharing, started just like kind of creating this energy between us. We started talking, and long story short, they all started getting on to their paths in life and being really successful in that what they wanted to do. And then I started hearing this a lot. Hey, you really like helped me. Like, I used to hear this like on regular basis. Thank you. You helped me with that. You helped me. But I was like, again, so like, humble that I never really thought that I am able to share something special. So I was living in this imposter syndrome, like to say like least that, oh, maybe I know something, maybe I don't, but I'm just trying. My intent is like genuine, and I have no
Yeah.
bad intent, but I'm just sharing. And my co-host Sean, he's one of those guys, and he started his own journey 3 years ago, same thing, and we shared a book, and we kind of started sharing life after that. And when he opened up his studio last year, which was his dream, and again, like we worked together to realize that dream. In Portugal, he goes, you know what, you help people manifest their dreams. And he said these big words to me, and I was really like, full of gratitude. I remember in that moment, he goes, you know what, you should like share all this on a podcast. And that was the first time I'm like, podcast, I'm like, oh, I don't even know how to speak proper English, man. I get like stuck sometimes translating in my head, like it's not gonna work. But this kid didn't give up, right? He kept bringing camera in front of me, and there was hundreds of takes. I couldn't even say anything in the beginning, but again, with constantly showing up, constantly practicing, and eventually we decided, okay, let's do a podcast. Then we brought in a couple of other people. One was videographer, one was marketing. So we all started putting a team together, and the idea again was not to really share some wisdom we discovered, was to share our journey. That, hey, like I learned this, and here you go. Like I'm gonna share it with you. Like now it's up to you. You wanna do it? Don't wanna do it? We don't care. And like we're gonna continue doing it, and we're gonna keep documenting our journey, so that even 3 years later, you decide to do it, you can see we haven't left this path, because we believe in it now. So that was the intent, and really like no expectations of any viewership or none of that stuff. And we slowly kept taking steps. And the first season, it was just me and Sean talking about things which matter to us, things like law of attraction, things like action is key, things like who is around you, the people in your life, things like love as a safety net, how important love is in our life. So these things are important to us. So me and Sean explored these topics in the first season. Then again, organically, we started attracting people around us who were in our universe, and these guys had something to share, and they were living those lifestyles, and they were really successful in their life. So we thought, hey, like let's ask them if they want to come and share the story. And that led us to bringing like all kind of diverse guests on the show, from like COO of like the fastest and the number one brokerage in Canada, to like the only Indian guy to do like 5 Ironman in 5 days. He's like the top endurance athlete in India. Yeah, he actually, the recent episode is with him. There is another guest we had. He is pilot, and he's a doctor, and he spent his time at NASA because he was offered a job, but he kind of left the job. So our intent with guests is not necessarily to look at their accomplishments and their tag or their designation. Our intent is to bring real human beings who are doing real life things, something in the same vicinity what we are kind of talking on the podcast, to just reaffirm the beliefs. Because again, like we are doing storytelling, and everybody out there are listening right now, they might find relatability to Arjun or Jay or me, and it's all, if the intent is the same, doesn't matter who they hit it with, right? So we just want to bring that different set of eyes, like a different angle to the same thing, if I may. So yeah, so the guest keeps like coming up. We had a really interesting guest who is one of the like the best social media marketers in the world, and yeah, so we are very blessed to come across amazing human beings, and just learn from them. And I think this whole podcast journey is turned into a learning like machine for us, and more than anything, we are learning. We are having breakthroughs on the conversations. Recently we started going in nature, that turned into like an event. Now there are a few people who want to join us on a hike, and we go to a nature and like hike place and shoot the podcast. So it's becoming like a fun and a lot of learning and growing, and a community around it. So that's how podcast came. I feel like anything in my life, I haven't really like ran towards achieving it. It's just like I just cruised and I just enjoyed life, and I think it just happened to be. That was the best part. I don't feel drained. I don't feel like, sometimes my friends tell me, how do you manage it all day, like back to back? I'm like, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels fun. It feels like life is good, right? Like,
incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah. And one of the things that I really like about your podcast is that you guys aren't only focused on helping people change the way they think about their inner world and, you know, their inner thoughts and inner life, you're also focused on helping people change their actions and the way that those desires and thoughts manifest in the real world. So I really appreciate that you're able to talk about both elements in harmony, because I think a lot of people maybe focused more narrowly on fixing your inner world or focus more narrowly on go in the outer world, but you talk a lot about the interplay between those two worlds, which is, I think, an important thing for a lot of people to hear. Can you maybe, as someone that's accomplished so much in your life, talk about the balance between vision and execution and not getting too lost in the vision or too lost in the execution?
Yeah. And I think that was like, if you ask me, like, what's the biggest learning I have had in my life from all these books and all these amazing mentors, that was that it's about balance. It's not like, I think a lot of personal growth space is very much driven from mindset, or like it's very much driven from a health or a body perspective. I think it's a mix of everything. It's not about like just like going into the gym and working out for 3 hours. It's not about just like being a bookworm all the time and reading books and consuming information. It's about having a healthy balance around your, like, however way you want to name it, body, mind, soul, right? So I think that's what helps us create that level of awareness, that consciousness. And by relating it to the whole, like the neurochemistry of our body, and how like the neurochemicals are being released when you are meditating, or what neurochemicals are being released when you're having a conversation with your loved ones, or what, like while you're working out. And it just kind of makes sense for me now so much, that everything is so interrelated. And you know, a lot of stories I hear, people who are so much fixated on health, but they still don't achieve results, because I find they are running away from something, and they are not really like accepting where they are. It's like a mindset problem, right? So no matter how much workout you're going to do, at the end of the day, you're not going to feel happy, because you're coming from a place of scarcity. So the conscious brainwash, like that's why we picked up such a controversial title, because we strongly believe everybody's being brainwashed right now. And the level of brainwashing is happening by your engagement in social media, to advertisements, to like everything, TV, media, everything going around you is brainwashing you basically. So we know that already. So now the choice is whether we want it conscious or whether we want it unconscious, because it's happening anyhow. That's why we say control your brain, or else somebody else will,
I
right?
like
It's
that.
already
Yeah.
happening. So it's a better, like, you know, it's like us, a lot of time people hate social media and phones and stuff, and they want to stay away from it. I feel like it's a superpower we have, but you have to understand, you have to have that balance to be able to use it to your advantage and be the master, rather than letting it be your master, right? So everything we have in the world, nothing is bad. Everything is great, but because the application is to a certain degree, to a certain extent, in a certain situation. It's not for everything is for everywhere.
So now when you think about your journey, what are some things, maybe it's one thing that you're actually working on to turn around? So I know earlier in the episode you talked about health was your blind spot several years ago. What do you think your blind spot is right now?
My blind spot right now, it's funny, I was talking to my trainer today, is not necessarily something I'm looking to uncover. It's like looking to explore. It's like for me to kind of see my blind spot, I have to push through my limits. And like when you say to turn around, I literally do not see anything I don't like at this point. I
Nice.
am in agreement with everything. And now again, you can categorize good, bad, ugly, depending on how you think. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I'm in acceptance of everything around me. Now, I am not coming from a place of turning it around. Rather, I'm coming from a place like, oh, what else I can find out? Like, oh, like, let's go more. Like, let's push your body more. And oh, can you do boxing? Can you look like like a good boxer? Like, what do you need to do? Oh, can you run like a triathlon? Can you learn swimming? Like, oh, I'm like deathly scared of water. So can you get over that fear? It's like facing those like unknowns is what kind of really excites me now. And every day is a new day, or every second I believe is a new second to explore something you haven't before. So it's like, hey, like, let's try something new. Hey, I really feel hesitated to go to that stranger and say hi. You want to do that? Like, let's try that. Why not you say hi to the stranger? Or, hey, you haven't tried this food. Like you always thought, like you're so in your box, let's try this food. What is worst case? You don't like it, you throw it. It's about everything. It's not like a big audacious goal. It's about the smallest thing. Like, hey, like my son and me haven't played this before. Let's try to play this thing, or let's try to do what he likes. It's in every second we have an opportunity to do something new. And I think that's what I try to do. Like now that I have been to so many personal growth events, they make you aware of your mortality. And that's something I kind of try to be aware of. Life is too short. What if this is the one and the only time I am going to be able to do a podcast? And what are we going to do? Am I going to say everything I want to? Hell yeah, because I don't know if I'm going to ever get a chance again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like living in that present moment and just enjoying life there.
And being conscious of your mortality, it has to be one of the top 10 rules for success.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be there. If you don't have it there, you don't understand how short life is. You can't take on the attitude that you have, in my opinion.
No, I think that's a very powerful exercise and mindset to be aware of, and I think most of us are very oblivious to it, and especially in times like this pandemic when there is like literally like a death clock going on. Like you can see on TV, somebody's dying every single second. Like it just blows my mind. Like once you have this level of connectedness to the humanity in general, you'll feel like you lost somebody close to you. Like one of like the biggest breakthroughs other than the fact mind body soul I had was the responsibility aspect of things, that we take responsibility for things which are under our control, and that's how we define the word responsibility. But in fact, responsibility is a larger thing. It's about everything. Like this whole universe is my responsibility. Like if something is happening in San Diego and I don't like it, I can't say no, it's not my responsibility because I'm living in Toronto. Like something I can do to avoid it, and we all know that, right? There is 100 things everybody can do, but do I choose to do it? So responsibility is about your choice. Do you want to take it or you don't? It's not that no, this is not for me. Kind of that's something I live strongly and closely by every day.
Yeah, and
so
it seems like you're kind of living at the frontier of your comfort zone instead of living, in the dead center of your comfort zone. Like I think a lot of people, myself included, have lived at certain points of your life. Certainly when you're a kid, it's easy to kind of run back to mom, so to speak, but having moved across the world, having started your own business, having taken all these risks, I think you've gotten very comfortable being uncomfortable. And now you're at a point now where you can actually invite that, that constant experimentation into your life, which is just an awesome way to live. And it's, something that I think brings a lot of fulfillment to humans.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I again, like repeating what I said earlier, like I believe all of us and have this ability. And if anything I want to accomplish in life, you ask me, Arjun, what I want to turn around, this is the mindset. If I am able to, not if, when I am able to leave this world with more people having this mindset, that's something I want to turn around, honestly. Like, and that's something which drives me, because you can give millions of dollars to people to be the biggest philanthropist on the earth, but it's not going to really change the way people think, right? Exactly. And even being comfortable, like for example, like the word comfort, uncomfort, the word uncomfort kind of brings an uncomfort to our body. That's like bullshit, right? Like it's just, oh, you're uncomfortable, and right where you're like, oh, why am I uncomfortable? It's like the body is designed that the words are kind of driving our body, and that's where I'm like, what? So words is nothing. Like if the word uncomfortable is comfortable, all of a sudden I'm feeling okay. If it's
how you look
work,
at it.
Hey, I'm working, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm working. And if you're like, I'm playing, hey, I'm playing. Just the word kind of really defines your energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
And speaking of comfort, I mean, like there's, Jay, you were just touching on it. Most of us live in the center of our comfort zone. And if you look at humanity, we're definitely the most comfortable generation of humans ever, but we're maybe the least joyful generation of humans ever. And so it's like, just because you're comfortable doesn't mean you're joyful. It's how are you looking at the world through your lens, through all the filters in your brain? What are you putting out there? And to Pankaj's point, if you don't want to call it work, don't call it work. Call it playtime and see what it does to your mentality.
Yeah, that is so
Absolutely. That's
true.
power. Is that something you got from Law of Attraction, Pankaj?
Honestly, Jay, it's like all of a mixture of everything. I feel like it's like one word from one place, second word from another. It's a feeling. It's something I feel like, rather than at this point, like if I read a book, rather than have like soaking in the content, I try to feel it, like what the author is really like trying to, how is he feeling while he's expressing this, and and it's trying to connect with that feeling, then the content itself. So sometimes it just comes out of my mouth. I don't even know how I put it together, to be honest with you. I think now my body is just like so connected, it just comes out. I don't know if it's making sense, but that's how I feel, to be
Sounds
honest.
good to me.
That's
Yeah.
what I was
That's how
like.
I feel.
That's
and
what I was
and
like. This guy, he just emanates the things that he talks about, whether it's positivity, whether it's just the warmth, whether it's the genuine way of living life. I mean, you really do live it, breathe it, and it's coming out of your pores.
No, guys, and I'm very grateful to even have you guys in my universe. And this is something again, when Arjun and you, Jay, embarked on this journey, and it was such a proud and happy moment for me. That's how I feel. Like honestly, when I see other people doing stuff which kind of I am on journey to, I never see it as competition. Like I see it as, oh wow, now they are doing. There is something we can learn from each other. There is like, I can see their journey and I can see how they are looking at stuff, right? And when you get into that mindset, everybody becomes friends. And I built my business literally with my competitors. Like people were like, oh, mortgage agents are competition in mortgage agents. I'm like, how? Like, because some problems you can solve and I can solve. So I'm your friend. Like, how am I a competition? And just by changing their mindset, I had mortgage agents as my clients. I don't have direct clients in my career. I have mortgage agents who come to me with their complex problems. So again, once you have that mindset, you can create an opportunity anywhere.
For
It's really
sure.
powerful.
No, thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm really really grateful. I feel like there is so much amazing stuff you guys are also sharing, and people should just give it a thought. I think you just show up, you just give yourself 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes to listen to a conversation, and just surrender during that time. I think we sit with like so many, oh, this is bullshit, like I don't agree with it, I agree with it, right? Like we kind of checking off things when we listen to content, or we engage with people. As long as you're just there and just let it be, I'm pretty sure like your body and your soul is going to end up soaking something, and that's going to really help you
Dude, you are
elevate.
a walking example of shifts in perspective, and you are a walking example of how we can all rise laterally. Like literally, you had to be on this podcast. There was no way the universe was not going to allow you to be on this podcast. Before we get to the last question, though, can you tell our audience how they can follow you, how they can get in touch with you? Tell us, about your social media and all that.
So I am available. have a handle on Instagram. It's IMAMP as a Peter Sharma. That's my handle. You guys can find Conscious Brainwash. It's on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Spreaker and YouTube. I think I'm getting there, but if you type in Pankaj Sharma and say Toronto on Google, I think you'll find me. But I'm getting there. Maybe one day I'll have a Wikipedia.
Nice,
That's
nice.
been my always, like I used to ask my friend, I'm like, how do people get Wikipedia? How do I get one Wikipedia? So maybe one day it'll happen itself. There's no rush. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram on Conscious Brainwash and stuff.
Well, we'll wrap things up then with one last question here. And we're going to give you our answer as well, so we'll have to do a little thinking. Today's question is, if you could have dinner with any two historical figures, one living in the present and one that's already passed away, who would they be? So an example could be like Kim Jong-un and Harriet Tubman. So I'll give you a moment, Arjun, to think about it. I'll have to think about it myself, and Pankaj will get back to you once you get your answer.
So the question is, who would you have dinner with? One living and one dead, historical figure.
Mm-hmm. I have my answer.
Go for it.
I think from the dead, I would definitely want Nelson Mandela.
Mm,
And from the living, I would definitely want to have Elon Musk.
mm, I
I
like
think
that.
Elon, the way his mind is so uniquely different than most of the human beings and how he sees things, I would definitely want to kind of see how he engages and talks and what kind of storytelling does he do. And with Mandela, like I still haven't finished his book, but everything I hear about him, that guy, it like was like in itself, it was, I don't know if you know, again, I feel like God is a very defined in a different way, but he's a god in itself, a human god, like somebody you can look up to, who persevered through hardship, and who had that smile and compassion for people who were putting him into, like, you know, struggle and like hardship. I think that's very hard for humans. Like we tend to only like align and gravitate towards good. It's very hard to align and gravitate towards bad, right? Like somebody who's like not giving you food and putting you in jail, and you know, it's very hard to love that person. So I would really want to see which depth of his heart he had to go, like how did he build that idea of loving those people and getting that nation to where it is. So those are the two people.
Those are great
Fascinating.
answers. Jay, what about you?
I would say, in terms of the historical figure, I would go with Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychoanalyst. He was Freud's protege. He apparently had the ability to uh, really in, not only did he have incredible mastery of history and psychology and alchemy, but he could figure someone out very quickly just by hearing a few of their dreams and having a couple of sessions with them. So I would love for the opportunity to be psychoanalyzed by Carl Jung. And then in terms of the second figure, I would probably say Sam Harris. I've been listening to Sam Harris for years now, and it's it's one of those things where you feel like him being on the receiving end of his words for hours and hours on end. But I would love just the opportunity to actually have a two-way conversation instead of being a audience participant. So I'll probably go with those two names. How about you, Arjun?
So, from a figure who's passed away, I would want to have a one-on-one conversation with Kobe Bryant
Mm.
and hear about the Mamba mentality from the Mamba himself, and just feel the energy and the aura. Just imagine if you're, 3 feet away from him, you probably can just feel the intensity. So that would be the figure who's no longer with us. And for the figure who is with us, the Dalai Lama. And the reason is because this is a story. We go back to my honeymoon in November. We're in Singapore. My wife and I are in a museum. And that museum, there was one room that actually had books on the wall. And for some reason, I went to the bookshelf and I don't even know why, but I picked out the book called The Book of Joy that was written by Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. That book legitimately changed my life. It's the book that helped me understand the concept of living a more joyful life, but more importantly, living a life where you're giving, living a life where you're seeing joy in others first to find joy in yourself. So the fact that that had such a huge influence on me, I would love to have a conversation with him and again, feel the aura, feel the presence. So my choices are Kobe Bryant and Dalai Lama.
Wow, those are very interesting choices. I don't know much about Carl Jung. I still have to read about him, Jay, but all the other people look like amazing.
Yeah, there's some mind blowing stuff in his bibliography for sure. It's pretty hard going, but there are a lot of books written about his works that I might recommend reading beforehand because the original text is pretty dense and pretty hard to wade through when you don't really understand his whole vocabulary that he's been that he's working with. But there are so many thinkers that came after him that really made his teachings a lot more palatable. So if you want some recommendations, maybe I can shoot you an email or something like that.
But definitely, I would love to offline. We can do that.
Awesome.
Like, just if you guys want me to, like, one thing I've been super hard on sharing a book read these days. If you want, I can share it with your guest. Leave them with a book recommendation, which can help as a foundation to everything they want to do in their life. It's called Inner Engineering by Sadhguru. I attended a workshop the last year, and it was a life-changing workshop. And I feel like this book has secrets to everything any human is looking to accomplish, and that this is like a blueprint to get to yourself in a conscious state where you are able to create the reality you want, or you will have acceptance for the reality you have. So Inner Engineering by Sadhguru, it's a great book.
Awesome.
Great way to end this amazing conversation with you, Pankaj. Once again, thank you for taking some time out of your busy life to be with us. I think your story is going to resonate with our audience, and just happy to have you in our circle, bro.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful, guys.
Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Rising Laterally. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and were able to walk away with some new thinking that could help you in your personal or professional growth. Please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. And if you know of someone who could benefit from this episode, we'd love for you to pass it along. See you next week.